The fractal light. My sister Claire had always been the rational one in the family, logical, level-headed. So when she called me one night, her voice shaking, telling me that her house was haunted, I honestly thought she was losing it. "It moves my things," she whispered over the phone. "Takes small stuff, jewelry, keys, my damn glasses, and it puts them back, but never where I left them." I laughed. "Maybe you're just forgetting where you put things." Silence. Then barely above a whisper, she said, "I see it, and so do the girls." I didn't know what to say. Claire had recently moved into an ancient house in the English countryside, 1,000 years old, built long before electricity, before logic and reason dictated the world. It creaked and groaned with the wind. Its heavy stone walls seemed to exhale the weight of centuries. Still, ghosts? Really? That was until I visited. The night it came. It was late, and the house was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed against your ears, where even the sound of your own breath felt intrusive. I sat in the living room, sipping tea, while Claire's 2 teenage daughters scrolled through their phones on the couch. Claire stood by the fireplace, tense. Then, without warning, she whispered, "It's here." I frowned. "What?" She didn't answer. Instead, she moved toward the staircase, her daughters quickly following. Something in her expression unsettled me. I got up and followed, feeling the air around me grow charged. We stood at the foot of the stairs. The space was dim, lit only by a single hallway light. And then, we saw it. Hovering on the landing was a glowing sphere, about the size of a soccer ball, pulsing with shifting patterns of intricate light. It wasn't just glowing, it was alive, its surface swirling in fractal-like designs that twisted and expanded, folding into themselves in impossible ways. A shape that didn't belong in this world. It didn't move at first, it just hovered, as if watching us. Then slowly it began to glide down the stairs. Not of this world. The moment it moved, I felt a pressure in my ears, like a silent sound too deep to hear. My sister's dog, who had been lying by the couch, suddenly snapped to attention, every hair on her body standing straight. A deep, guttural growl rumbled from her throat as she tracked the thing with terrified, unblinking eyes. My breath hitched. It was coming closer. It wasn't fast, but it moved with purpose, sliding past us down the stairs. As it reached eye level, I felt something brush against my skin, a sensation like a whisper of wind, yet thick and unnatural, like static crawling over my flesh. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. It passed us. Then, just as silently as it had appeared, it glided into the living room and vanished. The aftermath. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one moved. I could still feel it, the weight of its presence lingering in the space, like the air after a lightning strike. Finally, I exhaled a shaky breath. "Tell me you all saw that." Claire nodded, her face pale. The girls, usually glued to their screens, looked absolutely petrified. Without a word, I grabbed some pens and paper from a nearby table and handed them out. "Nobody say anything," I ordered. "Just write down exactly what you saw." We all scribbled furiously, our hands still trembling. When we finished, I laid the papers side by side. Each description was the same, a fractal light sphere, the size of a soccer ball. Moving down the stairs, a strange pressure in the air, the dog reacting, and then vanishing. I looked up at Claire. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely afraid. "I told you," she whispered. I never doubted her again. To this day, I have no idea what we saw. I have searched for explanations, ball lightning, electromagnetic disturbances, mass hallucinations. Nothing fits, and I have never experienced anything like that again. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that house, and I wonder, did it ever come back? The forgotten tenants. I don't expect anyone to believe me. Honestly, I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't lived through it. Our house was built in 1953, a simple, charming place, nothing too fancy, nothing too eerie. It had stood through decades of history, passing from owner to owner. When we moved in, my stepdaughter and her stepmom both told me something strange. "There are two ghosts here." I laughed it off, but their faces remained serious. "They're not bad spirits," they said. "Just an old man and an old woman. The woman used to be a gardener. She likes the plants you have." It unsettled me, but I brushed it aside. The idea of ghosts lurking in the corners of my home was ridiculous. Or at least that's what I thought. A stranger's confirmation. One afternoon, a neighbor stopped to chat with my wife. She hadn't been by in years, but as she glanced through our front window, something in her expression shifted. "Oh my gosh," she gasped. "I remember the old lady who used to live here. She always had flowers out front and a bunch of plants in the dining room." She smiled as she looked inside. "Just like you guys do." I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't told her about what my stepdaughter and stepmom had said. She had no way of knowing. I laughed nervously, trying to shake off the cold, creeping feeling settling in my gut. But after that, things started to change. The games begin. It started small, lights flickering on and off, items moving from where I had left them, little tricks that I could almost convince myself were accidents. But then the ghosts turned their attention to me. One day I was outside washing my cooler. I set it down for just a second, turned on the hose, and when I looked back, my dog's toy was inside it. No one had been near me. The dogs were sitting on the porch, staring. Another time, I threw away some moldy cheese in the morning before heading to work. When I got home that evening, I went to grab a drink from the fridge, and there it was, the exact same piece of moldy cheese, sitting right where I had left it before throwing it away. I turned to my wife, my voice shaking. "Did you take the cheese out of the trash and put it back in the fridge?" She wrinkled her nose. "Why the fuck would I take moldy cheese out of the trash and put it back in the fridge?" She hadn't done it. I hadn't done it. Yet somehow, it was back. The watching eyes. The worst moment happened at night. I was sitting in the living room, lost in thought, when I noticed something strange. Both of my dogs and my stepdaughter's dog were staring at the ceiling. At first, I thought maybe they heard something. A creak in the wood, a bug crawling across the ceiling. Then they started moving their heads in unison, slowly, back and forth, as if tracking something, but there was nothing there. No noise, no movement, just three sets of eyes following something I couldn't see. A heavy, suffocating stillness filled the air. My skin prickled. I couldn't breathe. "What the hell are you looking at?" I whispered. The dogs didn't react to my voice. They just kept watching, tracking, following something across the ceiling, their heads moving at the exact same time. I felt something shift in the room, something unseen brushing against my skin. A whisper, not a voice, not words, just a presence. I stood up, my heart hammering in my chest. I don't know why, but I couldn't look up. I didn't want to see whatever they were looking at. I turned and walked out of the room. I didn't run. I didn't scream. But I knew I wasn't alone. Not in this house. Not in that moment. And maybe, just maybe, not even in my own skin. Since that night, the dogs have never stopped watching the ceiling. Sometimes I wake up to find the lights on, ones I swore I turned off. Sometimes things disappear, only to reappear in places I know they weren't before. And sometimes, when the house is deathly silent, I swear I hear whispers. The thing that shakes the bed. It starts when you're just about to fall asleep. That fragile moment, when your body relaxes, your mind drifts, and the weight of the day fades into darkness. That's when it comes. At first it's subtle, a faint tremor, a light vibration beneath your body, like the soft hum of an engine buried deep beneath the mattress. Then before you can react, the entire bed shakes, not like an earthquake, not like someone shifting their weight. No, this is different. It's deliberate. It's waiting for you to notice. A family curse. I used to think it was just me, until my sister whispered one night, "It happened again." Until my father admitted, "I feel it too." Until my cousin, who had never even heard our stories, called me in the middle of the night, his voice shaking. "I swear to God," he said, I just woke up to my bed vibrating. What the hell is happening? This thing, whatever it is, has followed my family for 27 years. It doesn't matter where we sleep. We've moved houses, we've traveled across states, we've stayed in hotels, in cabins, in guest rooms of homes that don't belong to us. And still, it finds us. No escape. It started when I was a child. I would wake up in the dead of night, heart pounding, my bed quivering beneath me. Sometimes it was just a light vibration, as if something unseen was testing its grip on reality. Other times it was violent. The bed would jerk suddenly, hard enough to rattle the frame. I told my parents, "It's just a nightmare," they said. "You were dreaming." But I wasn't. And when my sister came to me years later, pale and exhausted, whispering, "My bed shook last night," I realized I was never alone. Others have felt it. Too, for years, I told myself it was my imagination. That is, until my wife felt it too. It was late. I was barely awake when I felt her shift beside me. Then a sharp whisper, "Your bed just moved." I grumbled something incoherent, half asleep. "You probably imagined it," I muttered. She didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand on the mattress. And then, it started again. A low hum, a deep, unnatural vibration crawling up from the depths of the bed frame, pulsing through the mattress like something was inside it. Her hand jerked away as if she'd been burned. "What the fuck was that?" she whispered. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The worst night came when I finally tried to fight back. I had been dealing with it for so long, I had learned to ignore it. But one night, it didn't stop. I woke up to the usual vibration. At first, I stayed still, willing myself to sleep through it. Then it got stronger. The bed frame rattled. The mattress lurched beneath me. And then, something pressed down on my chest. Not hands, not weight. Just an overwhelming force sinking me into the bed, crushing my lungs, pinning me down. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The bed was still. The pressure was gone. I gasped, sitting up so fast I nearly toppled off the edge. The room was silent except for the pounding of my own heart. And in the corner of the room, something moved. Not a shadow, not a person, just the faintest, flickering distortion in the darkness, like heat rising off pavement, like something trying to take shape, but unable to fully cross into my world. It was watching me. It had been watching me for years, and I knew, with sudden and terrible clarity, it was never going to stop. No evidence, no explanation. I've tried everything to explain it. I've checked the foundations of every house we've lived in, looked for underground tremors, electrical malfunctions, faulty wiring. There's nothing. There is no explanation, no rational cause, just a nameless thing that follows my family wherever we go. And the worst part, there's no way to prove it, no way to collect evidence, no way to make it stop. Tonight, it will happen again. Tonight, like every night, I'll lie in bed. I'll tell myself it's all in my head. I'll listen to the silence, waiting for sleep to take me. And then, just as my body begins to relax, I will feel it again. The first small tremor, the vibration beneath my skin, the cold realization that something else is in the room with me. And then, before I can do anything, the bed will shake.